Okay, so today we are going to look at various locator strategies that are available in Selenium. Now, prior to this, I have already given you a small assignment and most of you have been able to do it successfully, right? So just by following the documentation as you have seen, you will realize that it is pretty easy to do Selenium automation, right? Now, before we get started with locator strategies, we have to understand what is a DOM architecture or DOM structure in an HTML. So let me open this HTML file for you. I will open it in a browser. So let's open it up here in my browser. Okay, so let me open up this HTML here in the browser and you will see this is the page we get, right? Now, if you look at the source code of this one, this is the source code I have. It has various tags. The root is HTML, right? HTML has body has form, right? Form has various tags, right? Inside HTML there can be a head also, right? There can be a HEAD, head open bracket, oh so sorry, open tag, close tag, and head can have a title and few other tags also, right? This is first HTML, right? So this is, if I refresh it here, you will see here the title. This is first HTML, right? Now if you want to uh, uh, open this particular, or if you open this HTML in a browser, it gets converted into a document object model. And how it works is like this: is, let's say, okay, so at the root we have what is that? If you don't have the source code, you can say view page source here, right? Here you have HTML, right? So we get the HTML as a root here, HTML, right? Underneath that we have head here and body here, right? Head has title, right? And body has form, and form has various tags like input tag and other tags are there, right? So this is a DOM structure of that HTML. So this is like a tree where head, this and this are at the same level, this and this are at the same level, or the depth, right? So when this particular HTML is getting loaded into the memory, this is how it gets painted, or this is how it gets converted, right? So coming back here, when locating an element, when driver dot find element, when we are trying to use various locator strategies, it looks for DOM, document object model, for matching elements and return the first matching element to the test. So when we say driver dot find element, right? If we say by name, so whatever element has that name, if there are multiple, it will return the first one for you, right? So when the web page is loaded, the browser creates a document object model of the page, right? And HTML DOM is constructed like this, right? There is a, this is the document with root as HTML. Then we have a head, we have a body, and the underline uh, uh, children tags are there, or nested tags are there, right? Is it clear? So this is how the document structure or the DOM structure is basically created. Now this is done for all the browsers which you are making use of. I mean, you don't do anything for that, but the DOM is created by yourself. When I say yourself, it means the browser will do it for you. That it will get converted into a tree-like structure. And when you are using driver.find element strategy to find a particular element, let's say, then it will look into that DOM tree and give you the element that you are trying to find out. Is it clear? Now we have various strategies available, right? Some of them we have already tried, fine, but let's formally get introduced to each of the strategies. So we have a couple of these. Let's take each one of them one by one. Now some of them you have already tried, but anyway, we'll still figure it out what to do and how to use each one of them, right? So let me open that page which I had already taken up with you. Um, so locating, this was one of the page which we were looking at, right? So I will open this particular page, and this is what we had already worked on, isn't it? I shared this with all of you. So if you say view page source here, uh, so this is the structure we have already seen, right? Now let's look at various locator strategies. First is by name, right? So when you say driver dot find element by name, right? This is the syntax. We have already tried it. It looks in that DOM tree and looks for the first element which has this particular name, right? Or if you make use of ID, so what is the name? Name is nothing but this particular tag, right? Similarly, you can have ID as well. Is it clear? So these two we have already made use of, name and ID, right? Now the next one is link text. Link text is basically used to find a hyperlink which is having the tag A, and this is the text which you tend to see, which is visible, right? So if I say driver dot find element by link text, then I have to pass this entry, right? uh, we have already tried that. So in this case I'll say emp 100, right? So it will get me that particular element if there is a element with this particular text, right? Then we will try all this with an example also. Okay, then next one is partial link text. What is partial link text? That sometimes you can have a situation where you can have a link in which some content is dynamically getting generated every now and then. What I mean by that is, let's say currently it is emp 100, right? So let me emp 100, right? Now this could be your employee ID, his can be different, yours can be different, right? So we can have different employee IDs, and they based on different values of it can be emp 100, 200, 300. So I can say driver dot find element by partial link text. So partial mean any partial part of this I can give which remains same in the entire page, right? So that is what is partial link text. Fine. And then we have few more, and one of them is tag name. Tag name is these tags. So tag name is, this is an input tag, for example, right? This is again a select tag, right? But we had an ID, so we made use of that particular ID in this case, right? So let's do one thing. We talked about ID, name, and tag strategy. So we will let's write some program and try it out, although we have already done it, right? So I will create a new package here and I'll call it com.c2t.locator, locator, right? Okay, okay, I already have this folder here, ist. Okay, this is the one, right? So this was my Java code and this was my HTML, right? So this is my HTML. Let me open this one here. I'll go here. Let me close these files for now. Right? Right click and view page source. So let's look at ID name. We have already tried it, but for a quick revision, I'll say dir dot find element. Right? I can say by dot name. Yes. And the name which I can give here or which I have to give here is this particular name of that particular uh, field, right? Right? Yeah. So it will return a web element for me. Web element we equal to, it gives me that element, and then I can say we dot send keys, right? This is something we have already tried. Hello, for example. Yes. And I had also told you earlier on that if you are making use of what I should say, documentation. So if you look at this Selenium HQ, right? If you go to org OpenQA Selenium here, if you go to this WebDriver object, right? Here you will see that you can make use of this particular method driver.find element and by strategy, right? It returns this web element object, and on this you have various method where I'm making use of send keys, right? So this is the one I'm making use of. I have already explained this to you, right? So this is how we can search by name. By ID is also completely similar, right? So if I want to do it by ID, I'll simply say by dot ID and I'll specify the ID here. Fine. Then next is link. So I'll say driver dot find element by dot link by link text. So when I make use of link text, I have to specify the complete text as it shows in the HTML file. So let me go here. So this is the text which shows up here, right? I'll copy it and then I'll paste it here, right? And it returns a web element for me. Web element we2 equal to uh, this particular element, and then I'll say we2 dot click, right? So this is how we can click the hyperlink. Now you will observe one thing, that in each strategy or each time you say find element, it always returns a web element only, right? So if you search for a text or a button or a text box, if it is clickable, it will get clicked. If it is not clickable, it will not get clicked, right? If you come to the text box and click, nothing happens, right? But if you click here, an action is performed, right? So it's just that each one is an element. If it is a text here, you click on the text, does anything happen? No, right? So even if you find this element designation label, if you click on or perform a click operation on that, nothing will happen, right? So that is the reason, it because eventually it is the same web element, right? Or it's a web element. Eventually all the things that we see on the page is a web element of a web, right? Then the next one is partial link text, right? So so I'll say dir dot find element by dot partial link text. Okay, in this partial link text I can give any partial text, right? So let me say hello, because hello is going to remain same. In my case it shows name as Naresh. In your case it might change, somebody else name will be different. Welcome, your ID is so and so. So ID will change, name will change, but hello will always remain same. So this is a partial text of the whole text which is visible in the browser page. So basically, if the text is like hello, how are you, you can give anything, HELLO or LLO, this much also you can give, right? It should be substring or a string which is inside that string. That is why it is known as partial link text. Is it clear? So this is how we make use of partial link text. Then tag name is there. Tag is like input tag is there, a tag is there, select tag is there, right? So you can say driver dot find element by tag. By tag, whichever tag you want to specify, right? So if you look at here, in this case, this is input tag, right? This is button tag, isn't it? Yes. So if I want to find this one, I can say here I will say dir dot find element by dot tag name. If you give button, so it will give me this button which is available here, right? This is the tag. Yes, and then I can perform a click on that. Okay, so if I perform a click on that, it will bring up what does it currently do? Let's see. So if I click on this, right, it brings up this text box for me, so it will perform the same action for me, right? So this is basically how we make use of tag, and there are multiple tags. I mean, it could be any tag, right? Um, it could be input tag, button tag, a tag, select tag, div tag, any kind of tag you can. These are the HTML tags, right? Fine. So this is how we make use of partial link text by tag name. I have told you. Okay. Now before I go to the, okay, let me finish this class name also, and then before I go to CSS selector and XPath, I will talk about how to make use of find elements, right? So let's look at class name. Now class name, as I had told you in CSS, that suppose there is a field which has a class applied to it, right? So if you will go here, there is this field input which has a class applied to it, which is w3 input, and because of this it is showing here as red, right? So I can say driver dot find element by, so let me for the time being comment all of this, right? So that we can verify whether it is working properly. I'll say dir dot find element by dot class name, right? Class name, and this is the class, right? So I'll go inside this class. So it will give me the element which has this class applied, right? Then in that I'm saying dot send keys, right? The class is this, right? So I'm putting this entry. So on that particular element, which is a text box, I'm doing send keys, right? So let's try to run this program and see what happens. Right click, run as Java application. Okay, so here it seemed to have launched. Can you see this? This is class, right? Which just 1 minute. I think this is the URL which is open. Actually, let me open that correct page for you, wherever this one is pointing. So this is the one, right? That this is where the class is applied, right? If you will say view page source, this is this. It is light blue in color, and I fetch that, and when I run it, it will populate in that particular text box, right? You saw that, yes? So if not, I'll run that once again. Right click, run as Java application, right? So class is W3 input, right? So we can fetch elements by multiple strategies, as we have just talked about, right? So by class name, by ID, by link text, by name, by partial link text, and by tag name, right? Okay, now CSS selector and XPath, I'll talk of these two separately in the next discussion today. Okay, now before we move ahead, let's also look at one of the methods here which is there in the documentation, which is a little confusing, but it's very useful. What do I do? How does this one work? Find elements, right? Okay, so if I try to use this one, and let's try to automate this particular element using find elements, this one radio button, right? So how do I do it? I'll view page source. So I think so this is the one we are looking at, right? This is the right page. What is the name of that? The name is gender, gender, and gender. In all the three cases it is gender, isn't it? Yeah. Now what I'm going to do is I will comment this for now. I'll say driver dot find element, driver dot find elements. This time I'll find elements by dot name of, what is the name? Name is GNDER, right? So it will give me a list of web elements. First one will be the first radio button, male, second is female, third is don't know, right? And what is the return type of that method? Let's go and see. This is the return type, right? List. It's an array list, basically that list which we have already studied. So this will be list, list. Now I can either define an iterator, or I can define a for loop to access each of this element, right? Now let's say I use for loop for now. So I'll say for int I equal to 0, I is less than list dot size, and then I plus plus, yeah, and then I'll say list dot get of I, right? So what does it return? It returns a web element for me, web element, right? The web, I'll call it web. So it returns the zeroth web element, first web element, second web element, right? Now if I go to the source code again here, again it has an attribute called value as male, value as female, and value as empty, right? So let me first go to this particular web element, right? Web element has a method called get attribute, right? Get this attribute, right? Yeah. So what I can say is uh, web dot get of attribute, which attribute I want to get, value, right? Yes. So this is the value I'm fetching. When I say this, it will give the corresponding value, male, female, or this empty. right? And what is the return type of this one, get attribute? It is string, right? This is string. So I can say string equal to this, right? Now what I can do, I can say str if str dot equals male, right? Or female or whatever you want to do. Then you can say web dot click, right? Yes, not clear, it is click, click, right? So we are iterating all the elements with the name gender, fetching element one by one, and based on a certain condition, in this case condition is this much or this one, I'm performing a click on that, right? So let me try to run this program. I'll right click, run as Java application. So then did it check the male is selected, right? Similarly, if I make it female here, value is female, for example female, and this should be the same value as you see here in the here. So it is female. I'll copy this and put it here in my code, right? And let me run this again. Let me first close this one. Let me run this. Right click, run as Java application. Let's see what happens now. Yes, so now it has checked female form, right? So this is how we make use of get elements. Elements means elements of the web. It returns as an array list, and I traverse that array list. Either you can use an iterator or you can use a for loop, whichever you find convenient, and get individual web elements. So each is a web element, right? And you can perform some operation. Now coming back, suppose I am let me say I want to use one more place this find elements. So I will say driver dot there dot find elements by dot tag name, right? And here I'll give input, right? So what it will do is it will return for me each input tag, right? So if you will go here, the first input tag is this one, then this one, then next is, where is next, this one, then this one, then this one. Each of them will be returned for me, right? So each of them will be accessible to me as input tag by using elements. Yes, so zeroth, if I'm working on zeroth, it will give me this, right? Oneth will give me next input tag, which is this input tag, right? So that is how you can make use of tag name also to access all the elements by. This is not a good strategy or good approach, but sometimes it might be possible, or a situation might arise when this is the only option available for you to